Hi everyone. In my previous video, I talked about the petition that was signed concerning the proposal that were made on the white paper that the UK government released sometime, I think 4 months ago. The proposal states that migrant or skilled worker visa will need to stay in the UK for 10 consecutive years on that route before they can be qualified to apply for indefinite leave to remain. Petition that was brought out by some charity organization asking migrants here in the UK to sign. And in the UK, once a petition gets to a certain number of signatories, that petition will draw the attention of the government to debate on that subject matter in the House of Parliament or in the House of Commons. This very petition that was signed by migrants trying to justify the reason why the UK government should stick to the 5 years indefinite leave to remain route got about 108,000 signatories. The petition now drew the attention of the government, members of parliament, via messages they've gotten from their constituents, deliberated on the subject matter in the House of Commons on the 8th of September 2025. I talked about on the 8th of September 2025 being one of those crucial dates that will determine the fate of thousands of migrants living here in the UK. And indeed, the deliberation took place in the House of Commons. In a minute, I'll be sharing with you the video from the deliberation that was made yesterday on the House of Commons on the subject matter. There were two petitions that were deliberated upon. One is on a skilled worker visa, extending the period for those on a skilled worker visa to be able to apply for indefinite leave to remain, while the other one is for British national that resident abroad, which they are the Hong Kong citizen, right? So why that of the skilled worker, some MPs actually talked in favor of the government limiting it to 5 years as it used to be, while some others said there's need for the government to increase it to 10 years so as to discourage so many persons from gaining indefinite leave to remain here in the UK. But that of the Hong Kong national, the other petition, it was all a unanimous decision that it shouldn't be extended from 5 years to 10 years. Some MP argued that their constituents have reached out to them since the government made this proposal sometime 4 months ago. Most of their constituents are finding it difficult to cope, and their stay here is not guaranteed. As such, most of them, they are living in fear and panic. Some MP argue that this will also cause hardship to so many families, and it will affect children from gaining higher education here in the UK. If you came into the UK with a young child of 10 years and you expect that migrant to wait till 10 years before he or she gets indefinite leave to remain, knowing fully well the 10 years old child might have turned 20 by the time the parent is eligible to apply for indefinite leave to remain. And such a child can only apply to study here in the UK as an international student. The burden of paying that amount for somebody working here, that somebody that's contributing to the UK economy, you want him to pay that an amount after he has lived there for like 9 or 7 years. That is unfair. Some other MP also argue that this will also limit the UK for attracting some of the best talent to come and work here in the UK. The US, New Zealand, Canada can as well give you permanent residency even before you arrive the country. So guys, watch some of the debates and make an informed decision.
Thank you. The leader of the Kent County Council asking the government to increase the visa for healthcare workers. Would the honourable member agree that there's a double standard? 1 minute they're asking to stop the immigration, and the second minute they're asking for more health workers to be brought from abroad?
I think it will come to no surprise to anybody who's ever dealt for more than 5 minutes with any member of the Reform political party to appreciate there are double standards involved. You only have to read what the leader of their party says one week and then says the next week to realise that their association, their commitment to maintaining a close relationship with the truth is a very weak commitment indeed. When we talk, going back to what I was saying, when we talk about the high levels of net immigration, we must not lose sight in all of this of the human impact of the proposals the government's brought forward, especially, as many people have recognised, on the people who've already built their lives here and who are net contributors to our economy and our communities. Since the publication of the White Paper in May, many residents in my constituency of Chelsea and Fulham have got in touch with me, and these are skilled workers, and their overwhelming feeling is simply of being blindsided. They came to the UK in good faith, they followed the rules, and now they're being told that these rules might change just before they become eligible to settle. And they also find it destabilising that almost 4 months since the publication of the White Paper, the government still hasn't given clear guidance on when the rules will come into effect, who will be affected, how it will work. And one couple told me how they moved from the United States in 2020, both work for global firms, both pay the top rate of tax, and they believed rightly that in April 2026, just down the road, they could apply for settlement. Now, they write to me, the rug has been pulled from beneath us. Their plans are suddenly on indefinite pause. And similarly, we have a young scientist in my constituency. She studied in the UK, works in clinical research, she's paid her international student fees, paid taxes, invested her savings here, and now she has no certainty still about her future. And then in my constituency, there's a local NHS speech therapist and her husband, a data scientist. They're expecting their first child. They told me that even if they're not caught out by the changes now, they have no faith, given the way this has been handled, that the system won't be changed again in the future. So, Jeremy, people can't plan their lives without basic certainty. So I'm hoping that the Minister today will be able to provide my residents with the clarity they need and tell us when the government plans to launch the consultation it promised. And the previous Home Secretary said that there was plenty of opportunity for people to comment on and consider the details of the proposals. I hope this will still be the case, and perhaps he can reassure us of that. And also I'd like to understand whether the consultation will contain a clear and detailed definition of what the White Paper refers to as points-based contributions to the UK economy and society. Who exactly will be eligible for a shorter pathway to indefinite leave to remain? So, Jeremy, so many of my residents are literally counting the days until they become eligible for settlement. They deserve decent treatment, not 5 more years of waiting. So I look forward to the Minister's responses and to being able to offer my residents the much-needed reassurance to which I think we'll all agree they're entitled.
Ms Murray.
Thank you. Can I draw the Chamber's attention to my declaration of interest and the support my office receives from RAMP? I want to make a couple of points today, but I just want to pick up on the point that all honourable members have made, which is to recognise the enormous contribution that both these groups of migrants have made to British society, and nowhere is that more true than in my constituency of Edinburgh East and Musselburgh. As we're talking about indefinite leave to remain, I think it's important that we recognise that in this country, in the British immigration system, we don't really draw a distinction between indefinite leave to remain and citizenship. Almost all the main rights of migrants are accessed at the stage of indefinite leave to remain. But citizenship is important. Madeleine Albright was first a refugee in the UK before she was a refugee in America. And she commented that when she came to Britain, people said, "You're a refugee, you're welcome here, how long till you leave?" But in America, they said, "You're a refugee, you're welcome here, how long till you become a citizen?" And I think it's important that we reflect on whether the government should be agnostic about whether someone actually takes that step and becomes a citizenship, or is it becomes a citizen, or is it something we should incentivise and make meaningful? And as some migrants make enormous contributions to our countries. They volunteer, they stand up for their communities, they pay taxes, they work hard, they follow the rules. Let's be honest, some don't. But the system is not very strenuous for them in distinguishing between them. As long as they wait long enough, pay a fee, and pass the Life in the UK test, which is pretty ridiculously bad, then they get ILR. We have precious few levers to influence behaviour, precious few opportunities to foster social cohesion and integration. Shouldn't we be thinking more creatively about that? Now, if we're going to have a distinction between indefinite leave to remain and citizenship, if the pathway is going to extend from 5 to 10 years, can't the government think more creatively about how we build a migration system that works for migrants and for the communities where they settle? A third point I would like to make is that the immigration system has to be realistic. About a couple of years ago, under the Conservative government, net migration came up at almost 1 million a year. What that means is that there's a big group of people who will soon become eligible for indefinite leave to remain. That means they become eligible for benefits and for social housing. Now, I hope in her remarks at the end of this debate, the Shadow Minister will accept responsibility and indeed apologise for the complete lack of grip that the Conservatives left on the immigration system. But we have to be realistic that there is a large group of people who will become eligible for benefits and social housing that is not actually currently available because we've not built it yet. Now, we have to address public concerns about immigration. People who support immigration understand that. So we need to be thinking more creatively about how the immigration system works. If we don't give people indefinite leave to remain, that means they don't become eligible for benefits. If we extend that period, that happens too. But can we think more creatively? And will the Minister look at taking steps to address some of the points that have been raised here today? For example, access to pensions, home fee status, difficulty travelling. These are things that can be addressed with those two groups, while still taking account of the reality of the system that we inherited from the Conservatives. My argument, therefore, is if there is no substantive distinction between citizenship and indefinite leave to remain, if the challenge is that a large number of immigrants will become eligible for benefits and housing when they get indefinite leave to remain, if there is no mechanism to account for the contribution people make or to incentivise their integration into our communities, if the system is blunt, uncreative, impassive and rigid, and if we want people to actually take that step of becoming one of us and becoming a British citizen, then surely reform both of indefinite leave to remain and of citizenship is needed. Finally, I would just like to recognise the enormous contributions of both those unskilled worker visas and British nationals overseas. But I have a contention with the premise of this petition. Its implications for fairness and perceptions of fairness that some groups would get a carve-out based on the route on which they entered and not what they have done when they are here from the proposals. My view is that the system should look at the contributions migrants have made in the UK and not the visa that they came in on. So I asked the Minister if he could look with clarity, with the proper consultation, but with creativity and with a view to a migrant's contribution to the UK as we see the rollout of these proposals. Thank you.
Rebecca Long-Bailey.
For South Norfolk for his very poignant opening remarks. Now, the white paper has caused huge fear amongst many of my constituents who work here. They've built lives here, families, friendships here. They pay tax towards our public communities. Many of these workers came here to support our economy. They were invited by our UK businesses to fill key skills gap in defence, manufacturing, transport, aerospace, health, prisons and social care, to name just a few sectors. Now, the white paper introduces preferential immigration routes for what it calls high-value contributors, including a shorter qualifying period for ILR and citizenship, but it fails to actually define what sectors or roles actually qualify. Nor has there been any impact assessment on the loss of these workers to each sector. Oxford Economics have found that in defence alone, in just one North West manufacturer, BAE Systems, each skilled migrant employee contributes over £84,000 per year to the UK economy. Moreover, as well as being economically valuable, they're integral to our national security and sovereign capability. So I'd ask the Minister if he could provide reassurance today and outline which sectors will indeed qualify as a high-value contributor and which sectors will be provided an exemption. The White Paper also fails to provide any transitional protections for current skilled migrants already working here on the 5-year skilled worker visa pathway to ILR. And this is causing anxiety to workers and businesses alike. So again, can the Minister reassure these workers today and confirm that there will be no attempt to make retrospective changes? Now, social care is another sector which would collapse without the support of skilled migrant labour. But it's a sector which has endemic low pay and exploitation. I've heard first-hand harrowing stories from workers who were brought here on skilled worker visas and have been threatened, exploited and frequently underpaid or not paid at all. But because they're reliant on visa support from their employer, they're often forced to keep silent about these abuses or face having their visa removed. So to protect them, in addition to the retention of the 5-year route to ILR and a commitment not to apply retrospective changes, can I also ask the Minister to consider sector-wide visa schemes in social care, enabling migrant workers to challenge bad employers without the threat of dismissal and removal? And indeed, this also extends beyond social care. There must also be greater protection for migrant workers in all sectors from exploitation and strengthening access to trade union rights. Now, finally, the second group of constituents that are most affected in Salford who've contacted me in great fear are those within the Hong Kong community. Salford's home to one of the largest Hong Konger communities in the UK, and I was proud to attend their community awards recently, which awarded members of the community for their efforts in doing good for the city of Salford, from litter picks to supporting those most in need. It was clear that all of these people were dedicated to giving back to the society and economy that embraced them. Many came part of the BNO visa scheme set up in recognition of the UK's historic and moral commitments to the people of Hong Kong. Many were British citizens prior to 1997, and they maintained British nationality via the BNO passport. So the fear that is caused within this community, I'm sure the Minister will agree, is unnecessary. And I hope that today he can finally provide reassurance that the BNO visa scheme will be exempt from the changes proposed. And I hope he can provide much needed clarity and reassurance on the other points I've raised today. And welcome to his new position. I'm sure he's going to do fantastically. Thank you.
Steve Witherden.
It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, Sir Jeremy. Indefinite leave to remain marks a defining moment for individuals seeking to make Wales and the UK their permanent home. It grants the right to work, access to NHS healthcare and eligibility for the benefit system, enabling people to plan for their future, fully integrate and contribute meaningfully to our communities. The government's recent proposal to double the standard qualifying period from 5 to 10 years would have devastating consequences. A person on the route to settlement is already required to pay thousands of pounds every 30 months to renew their visa, in addition to the healthcare surcharge of over £1,000 per year. Doubling the qualifying period doubles these already extortionate costs, pushing individuals and families further into financial insecurity. The extension also prolongs the time families are forced to live with no recourse to public funds. Children in such households are significantly greater at risk of poverty and deep poverty, impacting their health and educational outcomes and creating long-term effects that will harm our society and economy for years to come. We've recently witnessed a rise in anti-migrant rhetoric and assaults on asylum accommodation, home to many families and children. At a time when far-right groups are exploiting fear, weaponising misinformation and stoking division, our government should be pushing back firmly and proudly, not forcing some of the most vulnerable in our society to live in limbo for a decade. What we need are shorter, more affordable routes to settlement, not simply because it's the right thing to do, but because it strengthens our communities, supports our economy and ensures children can grow up safe, secure and with hope for the future. The proposals outlined in the White Paper directly undermine the government's own aims of tackling child poverty, raising living standards and growing the economy. I urge the Minister to consult directly with those already on the 10-year route and to undertake a full equalities impact assessment before proceeding any further with these damaging proposals. Diolch yn fawr.
Dr. Rupa Huck.
Thank you, Sir Jeremy. Some really brilliant points today. I want to concentrate on my question on our universities. Imperial College, White City, UWL Ealing in my seat. They're genuinely world-beating UK universities are. They generate billions of exports. They are central to UK soft power and global relationships. But almost everyone faces financial challenges. So they've had to diversify income streams to cross-subsidise their work, and attracting globally excellent researchers and international student fee income has helped them just about manage. Ex-colleagues of mine are closing down degrees reluctantly. Whole institutions face going bust. So with competitiveness and growth at the heart of the government's missions, if the UK makes it too onerous, our universities will lose talent and market share to Canada, Australia, the US. In fact, settler status is 5 years in most of the rest of Europe. So unwittingly, we are advantaging our rivals. At Imperial College's White City Innovation Incubator, I saw many international postgrads pioneering scientific and technological advances. Some on the 2-year post-study work visa benefit our economy to the tune of 265 billion, but 14 years of chronic underfunding, and now potentially another blow here, impacting our constituents, students, staff, and those young from lower income backgrounds who are always typically more debt averse will be put off entering HE at all. PwC found UK universities expect to increasingly rely on international student fees, and they're vulnerable to reductions in numbers, and that is pre-White Paper. In fact, this isn't just all hypothetical. In many cases, we're already seeing the UK's declining attractiveness. So 2024 Home Office figures show a 19% decline in student visas than the year before because of the rules to stop bringing family. Universities have a vital part to play in growth and productivity across the UK, but we could be sleepwalking into the perfect storm. Straitened circumstances, decreasing international competitiveness, increasing expenditure, putting universities under more and more pressure. So we do need to be honest about trade-offs involved in reducing immigration and of culture wars, when what I'm talking about is 1 million miles away from illegal boat migrants living it up in hotels and sapping resources from locals. So a skilled talent pathway Hong Kong BNO person from Ealing who contacted me says of her circle, we have paid visa application fees, health surcharge, income tax, NI, roughly amounting to £60,000 per person over 5 years. Additional spending in the UK economy, rent, council tax, consumer purchases, education and childcare. Payments made in good faith under a policy we trusted would remain consistent for those already on the pathway. So Jeremy, in fact, Mark Pritchard, not Sir Jeremy anymore. Much of what is proposed in this white paper is welcome and sensible, but not moving the goalposts for those already in the system, not trashing solemn promises that we made to them, and linked to considerations of immigration and universities. We must put work, vocational education, further education provision, what universities are for, and their role in levelling up and all these sort of things. We need a realistic strategy for the long-term financial sustainability and their role in regeneration and growth. It's a graphic equaliser, really. So this is only a white paper. I hope ministers can take our points into account. Let's keep to our word, and let's keep the British higher education sector the envy of the world.
Dr. Scott Arthur.
Thank you, Mr Pritchard, and it's a delight to serve Andrew today. And I do thank the member for South Norfolk for bringing forward, well, for introducing this petition. And I want to thank all my constituents who signed it. And I do make my comments within the context of my register of financial interests. So I acknowledge the need to fix our broken immigration system, the one we inherited from the previous government. But we do have to do that in a way that focuses on measures that work, not make life difficult for all of us. So whether the changes to indefinite leave to remain will apply retrospectively is unclear, and I think that's what's at the core of what we're discussing today, with the government indicating that it may be retrospective. But legal precedent suggests retrospective application could be unlawful and it may well be challenged in court. Mr Chair, before I entered politics, I worked in higher education, and since the proposals around indefinite leave to remain were announced, former colleagues across our universities in Edinburgh have been in touch with me, concerned about both the impact on their current staff and also their ability to recruit new staff in the future. And I think, as the previous speaker made clear, if we're serious about growing our economy, we do have to support our universities as much as possible and ensure they're able to attract the best minds from around the world. And I would say gently to the Minister, he's sitting right next to me, so I can say very gently, is any other Western nation making it harder for their universities to attract the best minds from around the world? Of course they're not. And it's not just academics. I've also heard from many constituents, all of whom contribute to Edinburgh, who are deeply worried about these changes, what they would mean for them and their families and their futures. So I will share two stories to illustrate what I've heard. The first is from Sarah. Sarah came to Scotland from Canada in 2018 to study physiotherapy. She graduated during the pandemic, where she worked in hospital placements at the height of the crisis, facing, let's be honest, unknown risks. Since then, she has stayed and worked in our NHS, one of over 250,000 immigrants working in the NHS across the UK. She has treated patients in some of the toughest of circumstances imaginable. She talked about how she supported patients fighting for their lives in intensive care. Physiotherapy is on the shortage occupation list. I feel grateful that she's chosen to live in Edinburgh South West. But if these changes were to go ahead, our route to settlement would be pushed back until 2033. That means that for another 5 years, that means that she'll be faced with another 5 years of expensive visa renewal.